I'm here with Christina. She's head of growth at Lens. And let's start out with the basics. What is Lens Protocol and what's the vision of Lens Protocol?
So Lens Protocol, we're building decentralized social media. So we're building the tech stack on which developers can build social applications. But fundamentally, what Lens allows us to do is to own our social capital. So everything that we put online has value, all those relationships, and we don't actually own them in this day and age based on the current infrastructure. And we believe that with Lens, financial capital has been a great way to onboard people into the space. And Maggie, you've done a great job with SheFi educating about the benefits of taking custody of your financial assets, but we're extending that to social capital. And so being able to finally own your social capital, your digital connections, your content, and take them with you in your wallet is an incredibly powerful unlock. And like what we heard with Alo earlier, we're actually ultimately the consumers. We're not the consumers, sorry, we're the product of a lot of these applications. And being able to finally own our financial capital, our social capital, will be able to really kind of unlock the value of those relationships online.
Really quickly, can you explain what the social graph is and what we can own if we own our social data?
Not to get too technical, but Lens is all premised on the basis of NFTs. So your profile is actually an NFT. When someone follows you, that's an NFT. When you post content, that can be on-chain if you choose to put it on-chain, and you're also able to monetize it. As easily as posting on Twitter or on Instagram, you can make a post monetizable. And so it really empowers you to not be locked into the database of a big tech company like Instagram or TikTok or Twitter. You're actually able to digitally exit if you don't like an app and take your followers and take your content with you.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing because now, even if we're upset with a social platform, the thought of going to a brand new one and starting over is kind of exhausting. So let's talk a bit more about the creator economy. It's no doubt that it's a huge business, and I think it's definitely exploded or become really understandable in the public consciousness with TikTok. It's a $100 billion market size. Why is that the case?
I was at TikTok actually for 2.5 years before moving across to Web3, and my last project at the company was trying to understand the value of user-generated content. And so some of these trends that went viral on TikTok, TikTok will actually put advertising and monetize from that, but the end user won't. And so the idea was to really understand what is the value of this content if it was in the open market and a creator was able to monetize directly. I think platforms like TikTok and Instagram have been incredible in the sense that anyone can become a creator. You have the tools, and now with AI, that makes it even easier to do so. And so I think that's been one of the biggest reasons why the creator economy has started to take off, because anyone can pick up their phone, create content, and start to develop followers, which they don't actually own. And then the second thing that we're seeing is that people no longer trust brands. They actually trust creators. And so most purchasing habits actually happen because you are following someone and you respect that authentic content and that relationship versus being serviced an ad. And so those two trends together, especially when you have the brand world recognizing the value of creators and the fact that anyone can become a creator, have come together. And look at John Woo. Let's chat about John Woo.
John Woo _ on Twitter.
So John, for example, I will go and follow John and listen to what he has to say versus going to, say, a media publication to go and see the latest news about what's happening on DeFi. And John goes viral because people trust his content and they're willing to share it with their audiences. So I think that's a great example of user-generated content being sometimes even more powerful than what's coming from these media houses today. I mean, Mr. Beast is worth, $1.5 billion. And that's pretty crazy. He has 150 million YouTube followers, and he's managed to build an entire business. And so when I think about the UGC and the creator economy, it's really just digital entrepreneurship at the end of the day.
I love that. And we're definitely seeing in the public discourse this, falling apart a bit of brands and media, and really the rise of people who are able to tell stories and share perspectives from being maybe inside these industries and giving us what we feel like is an unbiased opinion and really rising to the top and people wanting to work with them. And so we have a lot of examples of the Web2 creator economy platforms. We know YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, which Viv just told us to not be on.
I'm actually pretty impressed that no one here has downloaded Threads, or at least a very
I've downloaded
limited.
Threads.
You have? I haven't actually.
We'll talk about that, but we're going to talk about it later about kind of how this need to build your personal brand as a creator, and so some of those choices you kind of feel impulsed into making, like downloading Threads. But first, let's talk about the challenges with these Web2 platforms.
One of the biggest issues that I see is everything at the moment is based on perceived value versus real value, and so as a creator, everyone's optimizing for what? Followers. Right? Versus actually depth of following. And the reason behind that is because ultimately you don't have the data or understanding of that depth, and neither do advertisers when they're putting money behind creators in influencer campaigns. It's all very superficial. And where I see Lens being particularly interesting, and we chat with a lot of creators, and we have different conversations showing them different parts of the ecosystem and trying to understand really what is that aha moment for them, because ultimately at the end of the day, that's going to be what resonates with the average creator and helps us bring more creators across to Lens and enable mass adoption of social. And one of them is, oh wow, I can finally see my data. So who's followed me first? Who has been sharing my content, which has resulted in more followers? And we've even done a ton of experiments with ChatGPT. Imagine putting your social data into ChatGPT and running questions such as, who's been engaging with me the most over the last 3 months? Like, why have my followers grown? You can't do any of that at the moment because your data lives in servers across 4 or 5 big tech companies, and it doesn't speak to one another. And that's really been at the disadvantage of the creator ecosystem. There was a stat that I saw on Twitter last week that said 40% of creators make less than $1,000 a year. Like, that is pretty crazy when you think about it. And I can give some examples on Lens of where we've seen success stories with creator monetization, but it really ties to the fact you're building a business without data. So how are you really empowered to build a business if the creator economy is entrepreneurship?
Wow. And I think that really dovetails into the scaling communities panel we just had, and the SheFi community really grows through the members referring other members. And I know that I see tweets, but I definitely don't have the data of who's sharing the most. We ask who referred you, but that's still a very process-intensive process, and it's not easy because I can't actually see who's doing what in an informed way. So definitely going to be leveraging Lens for that. And we have a Lens community, so if you have Orb and you have the SheFi NFT, you can join that. So I'm sure I didn't think of this, but I created a content on Lens, a course on Lens, Web3 Social, this past season. So it was a lot of fun. And what I really took away from Lens is that it's moving us from just a creator economy to a creator-driven economy, right? The platforms are not driving as much who gets to be with what advertiser and how all that works. It seems that we're putting creators in the driver's seat.
Yeah, exactly. Being able to monetize directly and take control and choose the applications that you want to use is incredibly powerful. And the other interesting thing about Lens is, your profile is an NFT and your followers are NFTs, and we call it programmable social. And what that means is that you're able to growth hack in very interesting ways. So for example, Lens, for creators, we try and meet them with the products that they're already using. But the most interesting thing is you don't actually need to do that when things are on chain, because people are actually able to compose the tools themselves, which is why also, we think of builders as not only being developers, but also creators, because you can build some really, really interesting experiences. And I'll give one example. There's a creator on Lens called Nick Hollins, and he has a podcast called UFO. He actually started with no followers on Twitter and pretty much bootstrapped his growth on Lens. And what he did was he really understood the power of composable social. And so he created this really interesting artwork for his first few podcast episodes, and he just left it out there for people to collect. And he said, must follow to collect this piece of artwork. So you can see how he was already starting to use, the new technology that Lens enables. Then he took that even further. He dropped an article on Mirror, and he said, you must either follow me on Lens, or you must have collected my prior publication. And so people then, in order to be able to experience the article that he wrote, and he token gated, they had to follow him on Lens, or they had to have collected. And so I think he now has 23K followers on Lens. And again, that's not to say that your follower count is representative of your value and how strong your community is. But what it does show you is you can actually take these tools and growth hack yourself independent of what the platform provides you.
Awesome. And now we're getting into this era on Lens, and because of these tools, of creators being able to directly monetize their content in a very easy way. But what is the core problem in your mind when it comes to creator monetization?
It's definitely back to that data point that I mentioned, and perceived value versus actual value in my mind.
Right, all the vanity metrics potentially that's jacking up perceived value versus what are you actually offering. And so, I think that how many people post on social media at least once a day, are creating content and putting their thoughts out there once a day? We're all creators, whether we like it or not. And I think it's important to think about building your brand and building who you are on the internet, because even if you're just using these tools as a message board, you're screaming into the void potentially, you are starting to share this data and this perception of who you are. And so I want to talk a little bit more about that and kind of the importance of it. Why should we take being a creator seriously, building our own brand seriously?
It's exactly what you said. You don't really understand your value until it's too late. And a great example that I have is, some of you here might know Remy Bader. She's, quite an influential TikTok celebrity now. I actually used to work with her. And during COVID, I was already at TikTok, and she messaged me, and she asked if I could help her get a job. Instead, she picked up TikTok just for fun, and was able to build out a niche and get in there early, and now she is a successful creator. But what I do see, the issue that she has, is then she tried to build that audience on Instagram, and she would always have to rely on, 1 million followers on TikTok, and she would put that on her Instagram to give her validation on Instagram. And so, she hasn't had an easy time of aggregating her social capital and being able to bring that influence to various platforms to enable her to be more of like a multimedia and multi-platform creator. But the long story short is, we're all creators, we're all posting content. We may as well do it in a way where we're protecting ourselves and we're using the best tools, because you just never know.
Yeah, I think that even in my own journey as an entrepreneur, I even wished I had been a little more out there about what I'm creating, and be bold about it. Don't be shy about what you're creating. Be bold about it, put it out there. It'll definitely pay off in the future.
I've even seen your growth since when we met at Bitcoin Miami in 2021, and you were just really starting SheFi back then, and now to see you as such an established name and a creator in your own right is great. So you never know, guys. You never know.
You never know. And this is an aside, but I was definitely shy about it in the beginning because the nature of it, because the nature of the ecosystem we're in, and back in 2019, 2020, you don't see all this positive encouragement that you saw today. So I was a bit shy. But I think going to Bitcoin Miami 2021 and people knew about me, I was like, you know, Bankless knows who Maggie Love is? Wow, like, really kind of helped me. And then my friends, meeting people like Christina, who knew a lot about creating, just encouraging me along the way. Everything's a team effort. And so I started leaning very hard into what I has created, and here we are today. So be bold. That was just an aside. You know, once again, talking about direct monetization, I was looking up some statistics to understand how the industry operates today. And so Lens has direct monetization, but in the traditional social space, 77% of creators go through ad-based models. Will Web3 shift that? And, you know, is there a role for advertisers and sponsors in the Web3 creator-driven economy?
100%. I think we're even seeing that with the Web2 social platforms that are starting to be pushed to offer a revenue share. But who here has actually been paid? Like, I think Facebook and Instagram are now apparently paying 55%. Elon Musk is doing this with Twitter now. Twitch has 55% as well. Has anyone in this room actually been paid?
No. Oh, someone back there.
Nice.
Amazing.
One.
Nice.
Congratulations. You get a Lens hat.
You get a Lens hat.
£1.
Nice. £1. Woo-hoo.
Because they don't offer it to everyone. I mean, you have to have a certain amount of followers or a certain, you know, threshold of CPM. So the average person and the average creator isn't actually able to participate in that. And when you look at, you know, media spend and advertising, it's a $600 billion business. There's a lot of money there. When you look at Facebook's revenues, they're making $115 billion. And I think only now they've paid creators $15 billion. It was previously a $1 billion creator fund. And so at least they're paying 10% now. But it's not going to everyone. And so ad dollars will still play a huge role in Web3 social. Where I think it gets most interesting is it gives us the opportunity for everyone to get paid. It gives us the opportunity to set the terms on our content being used in different applications. So, you know, if one application isn't paying a rev share, I can actually token gate it so that they're not actually able to read my content, and it's only able to be read by applications that will adhere to my terms. And it might not be big money for everyone, but we have been the product. So earning a few dollars every here and now and there, you know, maybe it's $1. Hopefully it's around, the average creator on Lens is actually monetized, I think it's $10 per profile.
Nice.
So we're faring better. And so I think once we bring in ad dollars into the Web3 ecosystem, the Web3 social ecosystem, there's going to be a tremendous amount of opportunity for people to control the terms, and if they don't like them, you know, opt out.
And I think we saw a similar dialogue in the NFT space recently with the turning off of the creator royalties, where the creators are advocating for, let us put it on and the market tell us whether they like it or not, versus a platform deciding. And I think what Lens does a great job of is giving you all these tools to set your terms, and then your market, your audience, you know, it will really tell you what they think. Like if this was an empty room today, we'd be like, okay, maybe not, but it's a full room, right? So really it's about empowering creators to set their own terms, as Christina said. So for the last portion of this talk, we're gonna talk a bit more about Lens and, you know, how people can leverage it. So Lens is a protocol, right? It's not an application. But on top of the protocol, there are many, many, many applications to choose from. I think I had like 2 slides of applications that was just scratching the surface in my course. So how do I maximize my reach on Lens without feeling like I have to be on 100 different apps?
And I agree with you. I need to keep track of 100 different apps myself. And it's tiring, but it is also the beauty of open source. Anyone can create an application and initially bootstrap networks from the Lens community. With Lens, when you post a piece of content, you're actually posting to the Lens fire hose. So by choosing just one application, you're not undermining the ability to be discovered on other applications. And even Shaylee from XMTP shared our integration with Coinbase and XMTP and Lens. And so you can actually message someone from a Lens application and they can respond in the Coinbase wallet. So that really showcases the composable nature of social. But not to be overwhelmed, I would say the best way to get started on Lens is with one of the main apps that kind of services all needs and services all content to start, such as Orb, and then continuing to go down the rabbit hole. It is overwhelming if you do try and start on, 3 or 4 applications at the one time. But I would suggest everyone here should now be whitelisted for Lens, and Maggie sent you the instructions to download Orb. That would be the best one to start, and then continue your journey as fast or as slowly as you wish.
And then, one question that I think is really important in Web3, and Christina's written a lot of amazing content about this, so if you don't follow Christina, her user-generated content piece and the other one you put out, I spent a lot of time reading it for my course, but she talks about creating fans, right? So we're moving away from a world where brands are owning all these relationships. We as individuals, as creators, are starting to own our relationships. But right now, there was the TikToker who has like millions of followers, and she put together a show and then like 10 people came, right? So she has an audience, but she doesn't have fans. And that's a really important difference for creators to pay attention to. And goes kind of from that perceived vanity metric to a real metric. How do people here, how do creators go from building audiences to building fans?
And I think that's a really interesting point that you made about that TikToker. It doesn't just relate to the average creator. It also relates to celebrities. They always tier a spectrum of fame and quality. And if you have fame, you can sell out half a stadium. But if you have quality, you sell out the full stadium. And so always trying to figure out that balance, which is incredibly hard for a musician because it's so reactive for them with data. Spotify gives them their data 12 months later after consumption when they get their music royalties. And so how do you really understand who are your fans, and how do you understand who are your fans that are going to your concert, that are streaming your music, that are following you on social media? You don't have that aggregate data that I was talking about. And Lens really opens that up. And the first thing to identifying your fans is get the data, have the data, do the analysis, and then continue to find touch points with them in different ways, which is why the SheFi community that's now on Orb is incredibly interesting, because Maggie had her SheFi NFTs from I think it was a year ago or maybe 6 months ago.
Last fall, I can't remember.
Last fall. Yeah.
Time.
Dog years. But so she has that NFT, and so this is a community group now for those SheFi members that have been, your fans for quite some time, and you can go there and offer them different content because it's token gated, different benefits and different experiences, and being able to, again, take advantage of the composable nature of Web3 social, where your followers are an NFT, right? You're able to then do the analysis and identify who are your true fans, and then provide them with experiences and meet them wherever your journey is on Web3.
Okay, I loved opening it and the community being there, right? So they own the SheFi NFT, they're on Lens, and they just exist in that space. I don't have to go on Lens and be like, okay, now time to restart the SheFi community. So that was definitely a really awesome feature and part of this composable social nature. Okay, I think we're at time. Anything else you want to share about Lens, how we think about building our individual brands, or things that people can take away from this talk you want to make sure they know?
I think I covered most, but what I would say is essentially everything we do online has value. You guys, it is your digital real estate and potentially your digital store in the future. So I would just be mindful of that and making sure that you actually have those direct relationships. And NFTs open that up for us. And it was that wow moment. I can, drop a cryptographic asset in someone's wallet, and now I know who they are. But I think that first party data gets truly extended even further with Web3 social. So I'm incredibly excited. A lot of the applications you'll see at the moment are probably like the Neopets or the MySpace that was shown. Orb is a great mobile app, but it will take time to get there, and we're still early. So it really is for those people that want to experiment and understand the ecosystem, and then we'll continue growing to mainstream adoption, which I'm excited about.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Christina. Thank you to the Lens team.